Today we'll be talking about how to leverage AI agents to build robust internal tools. The first two parts of our series, we spoke about what AI agents are, how you could explore them within the context of your PM framework. We went through the different PM frameworks and saw how we could integrate it with RISE, that's the RISE, and we added the RISE A framework, as well as just the more interesting jobs to be done framework for product management. But you're very clear on what exactly needs to be done. And I think this lends itself well to AI agents and big design. So we mentioned the various types of AI architectures that we have and how they can be explored here. So the idea here is what I typically do in finance systems internally, and what I've had to do in most places is actually build tools for internal teams outside the customer facing roles because of the intersection of finance, data, and product. You're able to work with the internal team, and basically the finance organization would say, this is what we're trying to achieve. We need this to be built. And then I make the build by decision, or combine that and say, we would buy this, build this, and this integration will give us and help us achieve what we need to achieve. So that's kind of how I typically manage everything I do. And that's kind of like what the day-to-day is. So AI agents lend themselves a lot to the things we want to do internally, which is just internal tools and solutions that we might need to build. Now, the internal tools that we build, I will try to make this as practical as possible. So I'll run through this and we'll just discuss. I know it's usually difficult because either people on the road or people don't want to speak, but we'll just try our best to make this a bit interactive, just so that you have a bit more understanding of how we can get a practical use case for internal tool or solution. I'm using finance systems and customer service because those are places where there are a lot of strides that have been made, but it also doesn't necessarily mean for you or your organization, it's not something that will work for you. So, but we'll just use this within the context of what I do and this. So I'll explain the first part of this. So the internal agent strategy. So now, because AI agents basically its own, I'll call it, subcategory of solutions, like I referenced, they're saying for every SaaS business, there will be an AI agent for it. And eventually there will be a vertical AI agent organization that will be able to handle all of this. So that's where the buy solution comes from. But let's take things from the top. You might want to build your AI agent strategy from the top, and you want to do custom workflows, data integration. You obviously will not be ideal to try to create your own foundational model, but you might take variants of open source models and customize them. Even organizations that are typically against sharing their data have figured out ways around using AI agents. Like I'm sure most of you heard about McKinsey recently on how they have their own internal LLM platform that they use to generate their presentations. And they also allow the analysts as well as associates to use standard ChatGPT to basically get answers and to do research, but not necessarily they don't put public information there. Sorry, they don't put their private information in that domain. So things like that. And I think specifically they use an enterprise version of ChatGPT, the OpenAI solution here. So you could build internally and you could build end-to-end where your IT team or your data team, maybe your CDO specifically says, okay, I'll take this model and we'll customize it with our own data because we already have enough data, whether structured or unstructured, within our database. And I can create and have this learn on that. Then you create what I call, like, you can create like a mixture of experts. So I'm not calling people here, I'm going to just use your names. So just imagine, try to go with names I can pronounce. So let's say Esther, Olamide, and Bantu are experts in different domains within an organization. So if I were to build a foundational model, in this case, similar to what they claimed DeepSeek did, where you had a mixture of experts, So Bantu is an expert, Esther is an expert, Olamide is an expert. I could create models or foundational models that would just say Olamide's expertise in domain X, Esther's expertise in domain Y, and Bantu's expertise in domain Z. We bring all of them together and then we'll say, okay, we're going to build an internal solution that can speak to them. So Olamide is an expert at risk and compliance. Esther is an expert in finance, and Bantu is an expert in data analytics. So if I have a problem and I built this mixture of experts, assuming these three people I mentioned now are the experts within my framework, I'm able to build a competitive advantage because I'm taking everything Olamide has been doing all along, because Olamide documents well, has a solid knowledge base that I can use to build a knowledge graph. Esther has done the same and Bantu has done the same. So this robust level of documentation allows me to have enough data to feed into the system and build solutions that would make sense. However, if I don't want to go through that robust building process, let's say I'm a small organization, I might choose the route of buying solutions off the shelf. Here, there might be standard processes that I need to fit my data into, and this could be easier to deploy while it still keeps evolving. It also makes it an easier sell. Imagine you were trying to convince your CTO for like a 50-person organization. This is not saying the 50-person organization doesn't have like the revenue per employee to be big enough, but it might be harder to justify it. We don't have the people that will be needed to build this entire thing end to end. So we could just buy the solution and keep customizing. Then we can do partner integrate. You're a big enough company. You have AI capabilities internally, but you also want to combine that with your own custom implementation. So this is where all these three internal agent strategies could be. It depends on what you want to achieve within your organization. You don't necessarily need to do this. What you're trying to do, again, we're PMs at the heart of things, like whatever roles we have, whatever thought processes we have, that's it. We're PMs. And what we're trying to do is what needs to be done to ensure that our customers either get the best experiences. We want customers to succeed there, but maybe carrying out the first transaction, have pleasant experiences when they carry out transactions, reach out to customer service, ensure that our internal systems are up to date, our internal systems have the adequate uptime. So all these considerations, we then decide our strategy. And it doesn't mean that we cannot evolve our strategy as time goes by. You could start by buying and realize that, oh, I need to build some things custom. Then you do partner and integrate. Then as your organization gets larger, while you're doing 2 and 3, you're making sure that you're creating a habit where we can create documentation that we can then use to completely build internally. Because nothing beats data ingestion, like quality data ingestion, when it comes to building your internal system. You have documentation that explains what every module does, every product does. By the time you are doing your training, it will be so fantastic. By the time you want this to say, oh, I need you to go into this knowledge base to make a decision for me. It's going to be like, oh, I'll just go this particular thing on evaluating it. It's a risk question. Let me go to Olamide's knowledge base. This particular thing is a finance related problem. Let me go to Esther. So let me give you an example, or like a theoretical example again. So we place a PND on Wole's account today, and then Wole reaches out to the customer service person. You don't know why the PND was placed. You might have a tag for this person. But imagine you use the custom AI agent for this solution. He goes to Olamide's knowledge base, understands with all the parameters of Wole as a customer, and says, in Olamide's risk framework, the reason this happened was Wole is KYC level 3. This simply makes sense. People in Nigeria, I'm not sure. Well, there are certain limits that are placed based on how well you know your customer. So we're using a hypothetical situation. Wole is a KYC level 2 customer. However, Wole sent 5 million into his account. They automatically cost us to place a PND on his account because he doesn't have this. And because this 5 million, we would have placed the standard PND, but this 5 million came in tranches, or let's say it's 4.999. came in tranches of 999,990 and variants of that. But Olamide has already factored that thought process into his risk framework. So that is why we placed the PND. But we placed the PND and we also placed a regulatory block on this particular account because we are concerned that Wole is trying to be fraudulent. Because why all the transactions, the 5 transactions that he sent for 5 million, just under the threshold for what it would be for if it was KYC level 3. So we do that. By the time we send that to the custom agent, it goes through Olamide's documentation and knowledge base and makes a decision here. So that would be a way to do this. So you don't necessarily, even if you still have a customer service agent here, this person has all the information and all the knowledge to explain, oh, your account was flagged for possible fraud. It might have just been an error and oversight. We just need justification. You're also a KYC level 2 customer. You shouldn't receive this much. Please provide this. So the time to resolution, there's a massive improvement in the time to resolution here because we have all of those things in place. Now you might be asking yourself, like, if I create custom workflows on a tool like Zapier, I may be able to achieve similar things. But where this comes in is the decision making. Receiving that message from Wole as a customer, taking all those details, and then understanding semantically what the problem is and knowing where to direct it. So based again on our model where we discussed the hierarchical AI agent architecture. So, something like that makes this a lot more robust and a lot more interesting because you're not necessarily replacing people, because I know that's a touchy subject, but what you're doing is ensuring these people are more effective and you're creating a more beneficial, a more robust experience for your customers because they know everything that they need to know to resolve their problem very quickly. If Wole, the customer here, does not provide that, he can't blame the customer service agent X that you haven't done what you need to do for me. Because you've told me everything I need, the reason this was flagged. Do I need to provide evidence that this transaction was for payment for something? Was I working with the limit I had in another bank? So let's say I was working with a bank that implemented their 1 million transfer with fees. So this has happened in some banks where you can send 1 million, but the 1 million you're sending includes the 53.75. So I was trying to send 1 million 5 times, but I had to send 999,999 for 6.25. So that's what flagged it. But the thing is, Olamide's system is just saying it as anything suspicious as 999. Let's say he just rounds, takes anything 999 and just changes whatever numbers after that into XXX, basically. Effectively saying that suspicious behavior that he would flag. But this is a unique experience. So you now say going forward, when the transactions are from this bank, do a double check before placing that regulatory block. Doesn't stop you from placing a PND at the KYC level, but it allows you to then say, oh, I don't necessarily need to put a regulatory block on this because this person is sending from a bank whose transaction API is still flawed and they're sending money. If this person needs to send 1 million, they need to send it less the fees for that particular transaction. So that creates a learning experience and that autonomy, then being able to adapt to learning that from this bank, the transactions that they're sending when it hits 1 million, I've never received 1 million from this bank. All I receive is 1 million less the fees. And consequently, I can update and modify my process without necessarily taking action. It will just be a new step or a new workflow within the AI agent, and this would solve the customer problem. So that's a practical example of how an AI agent would differ from something like a Zapier workflow there. That level of autonomy and that level of understanding. But this will also come from learnings from, let's say, Bantu being a data analyst, the data analytics expert here. The Bantu system has said, this is how you identify the banks from the data that I provided to you. So when you go to a transaction in Nigeria, you see there's a session ID. That session ID can be mapped to different banks. Use that to carry out analysis in the background. And then that's when in the background understanding that's going to be like, oh, so I noticed that bank X never allows customers to send up to 1,000. Most likely a new bank, just testing out things. And creating a learning experience. So to them, this originally will start out as a bug, and when it's eventually fixed, again, Olamide's knowledge base will be updated with this new information and this new pattern, thereby letting Olamide build the knowledge base, but also letting that knowledge base evolve, basically versioning without Olamide necessarily needing to do analytics or speaking to branches. So you're just creating workflows and systems that let everyone's work basically integrate together in such a robust way. So all the Bantu data now goes, let's say, to Esther. So Esther is looking at it and saying, based on this, I'm saying we get the most transactions from this bank. I have a switching license. If I wanted to route transactions, which of these banks should I use? And what would I use to make an ROI decision? Esther will then use all the data from Bantu, which also ties to Olamide. So you've created a mixture of experts, where these are the AI experts, Bantu, Esther, and Olamide are the AI experts here. So this is how this will work. Or something like this, just in a hypothetical situation that I just try to present here. Okay. So that's just me. This covers a lot of the presentation, like parts of it at least, but I just wanted to give us to use practical example that would opposed to it being heavily theoretical, like the first two were. Okay. So internal agent architecture, this is, you have the business users here. This is Olamide the individual, not Olamide the agent. Here, agent interface. This could be how I receive the data, the information for the request. This will come in from Wole's message. Integration layer, I will connect to our CRM so that the customer support agent X can do this. I connect it to my ERP because I need to understand the transactions, and I also connect it to my data warehouse system, which has all the data for transactions, basically bound to the individual and bound to the AI expert here. The AI agent expert here will work with the data from the data warehouse. So the combination of this is basically how it works. So we interface with it and we do this. This is one thing that provides AI agents with that, and we can make the requests in natural language. You don't need to create complex or difficult to understand. You just use that natural language, the way we speak, the way we approach things. And that's what we should just consider here. So the next thing we have are the ML models that power this. As much as Bantu, Esther, and Olamide are experts here, we would need to use robust machine learning models. We could use, let's say, if we were to, for Olamide's system risk management, we could build a classification model. It could be any variant of a classification model here, basically identify transactions that are fraudulent and not fraudulent. Build ML systems that basically identify, understand transaction pattern and understand how Esther, the individual, not the AI agent, will spend money. So let's say we want to do budgeting. So Bantu will say, okay, I want to use an ARIMA model or with an LSTM. That's long short-term memory. Basically, I'm trying to understand the transactions. An ARIMA model is, it's a time series forecasting. It comes up a lot in finance. So when you want to do financial planning and cash flow management, understanding your receivables, your payables, and your cash. This me delving into like actual day-to-day here. Well, just giving you some context. So we'll create specialized machine learning models that will keep evolving with more data ingestion from here, and they'll just keep improving over time. So that's it. So you have past continuous learning and development. So that's kind of how you'll do this. Again, I'm looking at this in the context of internal systems and not necessarily customer facing. They're basically, my customer currently is the finance organization across all SBUs that we have. So think about it that way. For you, it could be, oh, who internally would learn from, will benefit the most from this, and how do I ensure that I do this? Okay, so one of the sub-tasks under the finance system is reconciliation, and this is just a simple example of how we can do reconciliation. So our first example was customer support using risk, fraud, and data analytics. with a touch of finance. But now, one of the things we actually do internally is reconciliation because of the volume of data that we have. So what you do here is you match transactions, and you match the transactions based on an understanding of what the transaction is, the table that has the information. So reconciliation for us, and this is me just being a little, I'll go into the weeds here just a bit. So reconciliation for us is in 3 different ways. It happens when I'm saying, for this transaction that's happened, have I received money for it, and have I received the right amount? That's one form of reconciliation. I have something else called, under the reconciliation domain, called assurance. It's basically saying that based on the logic I've established internally for how this transaction should be charged or processed, am I posting the right values, and can I create a defensible position for both internal and external auditors? That's the next. And then the last one is a combination of, for all the transactions that have happened in my customer's accounts, do they match the 2 patterns that are previously established? So this allows us to look at our entire general, all the accounts that we have internally, and create a robust process around this. You get, so this is how this works. And so now to match these transactions, we currently will just use our data engineering team to do the matching. However, the evolution of this solution is being able to talk to all the product tables with that understanding of, oh, I have multiple systems. I want to match the data in the multiple systems. And on the product table, the customer account, because these things are so interconnected, I can simply build a system that looks at the transactions flow end to end and says from the point where the transaction happened on the product table all the way to the customer receipt settlement. Do I have all the transactions in a way I can defend to both internal and external auditors? That's what we're doing here. I'm able to identify discrepancies and suggest ways to correct them. And if there's a way to resolve from the past using supervised machine learning, I will be able to learn from the past resolutions and then just pass it on, thereby minimizing the work that the internal team has to do to resolve this. So that's an example of automated reconciliation. So if you were a PM building an AI agent for reconciliation, you understand the different rules that exist for the matching, and basically for simple matching and complex matching. Complex matching are times where you have to deal with unique fees by customer. In the context of this, what happens is some people get some form of discretion. So you have different business billing profiles. So the matching there it's on a transactional level and on a transaction to customer level, which is what makes it a bit complicated. So then you now say, oh, how do I handle exceptions that come up? If I create a resolution part and escalation part, in the escalation part, when this explanation is provided on this, can I learn from that? So this is where the PM comes in. If a PM wants to build an AI agent for internal finance systems to focus on reconciliation, this is what you're using. And basically, we integrate it with our ERP and the payment gateway solutions that we have. This is real. The payment gateway, as you know, within the context of my organization, we have multiple licenses. So this is just contextual here. And then you just monitor the agent accuracy through dedicated dashboard, and you redefine the logic over time. Okay. So another example, if you remember, I mentioned predictive, the use of ARIMA models, as well as LSTM. So this way you want to predictive budgeting and forecasting. You want to build an AI agent for this. So typically, this is not, all the agents I described here, like outside this, the one I described previously, are things on my roadmap as well. And it's not that all of them have been built. So understand that there are always opportunities, and you also learn from them. Okay, so today, budgeting and forecasting is done in Excel. You will do variance analysis, which is basically how much did I budget? And budgets gets a tricky definition in the context of FP&A, which is financial planning and analytics, as well as corporate finance, right? So what budgeting is basically you budget your revenue, which means what is my expectation for revenue? Last year, I did $1 million. This year, I want to do $1.3 million for this particular business line. And how do I intend to achieve it? I intend to achieve it by bringing in 3 extra people, which means it will raise my cost by X percentage. And these 3 different people, the idea is that by the time they come in, 2 of them are in sales, 1 of them is an engineer. The engineer will increase our ability to deliver solutions, and these 2 additional salespeople will bring in an additional $100,000 because the expectation is they will win customers. So I will do all those things and model directly. Now, what it becomes interesting is this static nature. I bring in 2 people and I put them on their performance plan, and only one of them is delivering. My financial model is still going to show an expectation of 1.2, but I'm not going to have an explanation for why I ended up with 1.1. Again, just throwing out hypothetical numbers here. Now, if I connect this to my ERP system, understanding that the person I brought in, one of them, X did well, Y didn't, and Y has been put on a performance improvement plan, and Y is being let go because the person is not meeting expectations in a hypothetical situation like this. As much as I would say I hit 1.1 of 1. So let's say we hit 1.12 of my 1.2 target. By building this system, I can tell you, oh, in this period, the reason this happened was we couldn't get the additional sales as a result of this person that was hired, because I connected this to my, basically my ERP system, and I connected to other systems, let's say my HRMS system as well. And by doing that combination, I'm able to always connect a gap that I have to this. Now, another situation, X and Y overperform, and I was budgeting 1.2 with expected growth period on period to be, let's say, 10%. I now hit 1.3 in the first period. So in Feb, I'm expecting 1.3 times, let's keep it simple, at 10%. So in the next period, I'm expecting 1.43. But my original target was 1.2 to 1.32. Now, if that happens again, I will be able to explain, oh, we had an outperformance in this period. Then I make a decision, should I evolve this to 1.32 because we did 1.3 in the first period because they outperformed, or should I move between 1.32 to 1.43? I'll be able to make that decision. I might not be able to make an accurate decision in the first period, but I'll be able to make it in periods down the line because I have a better understanding of how did they front load their ability to gain value from this customers in this period. When, I don't know if you remember during COVID, I know it was a dark time, but during COVID, there was a lot of things in the news where they said demand was pulled forward. And in other periods, they think that the value will drop in terms of sales. Like different businesses will describe to you that during COVID, in the COVID pandemic, we had demand pulled forward. All the CEOs were saying that, but to the point where it became like a running joke. So everyone, once they say they had stellar numbers for this period, they expect the numbers in the next period to drop. And that's when they'll say, oh, demand was pulled forward. So have I pulled forward demand by getting these people because they are experts? And because they are experts, they are from a different, they pulled customers from the organization. But this is the maximum these customers can actually bring. And thereby saying that, oh, if I set the 1.5 target, the 1.3 target, I'm moving to 1.43, it will be an unrealistic expectation. This kind of learnings are things I can put in the work that I'm doing here. And that's when the advanced analytics comes in. So with this, I can now generate more accurate budget forecasts and adjust in real time because I now know the data points I should look at when I'm making decisions, thereby letting me create a more dynamic thing. And anything that is external to the original model, which could still be my internal stakeholders, or even external in the context of my original model. Basically, I'm saying the economic climate changes, let's say the war in Israel and Iran have an impact on what I'm doing. I'm able to look at the news and say, oh, because oil prices have gone up or gone down, this will have an impact on how the amount of revenue we can generate in Nigeria from oil, which means that it's possible that the naira will recover against the dollar, and consequently, I will spend less in naira on my servers and things like that. So I'll be able to incorporate external market indicators and then use the machine learning that I described. So you can reduce your variance in your budget. Because what happens with budgets is, you're earmarking money in terms of if you're spending, right? You're earmarking a certain portion that you could have used more efficiently. There's a function in finance that is about efficient utilization of your cash. So Esther's finance experts there would have said, oh, I want to ensure this money is available to the different teams. But now she's able to improve the forecast accuracy, and then she's going to say, oh, so Treasury, take this money and invest it, thereby increasing our return on investment for the period, or return on invested capital for the period. So she can also do strategic scenario planning much better because of this. And if things are going really wrong, let's say we have a huge increase in server costs, Esther human and Esther agent working together will be able to flag this for Esther human to make decisions. But Esther agent is like, oh, okay, something is incongruent here with our expectations. So that's how you could have this as a predictive budgeting and forecasting agent. Then the customer service agent, we already spoke about this, but this is intelligent ticket routing agent. Just a simple solution that you could have. You analyze your ticket categorized by complexity and you route it to the specialist. The specialist in this case don't have to be humans. They could be specialist agents. If you remember from our session last week, I walked you through a situation. I showed the sequence diagram. I'll try to reference it again at some point, but you can just do this and you continuously improve based on outcome. Thereby, you do your first call resolution rate. You can increase this and you reduce the time it takes to handle a problem. So when I was saying, Wole, the customer will be, oh, all I need to provide you is a picture of myself, of my passport, and I need to give you a bill that you validate, and then you give me a timeline for when you move me to KYC level 3. I also explain to you, send you the 5 receipts from my other bank and show you that it's not fraudulent, it's the way they handle their transactions. I send this to you. I am happy because I know the exact reason for my problem, and you are happy because you can reduce the time, thereby giving us more productive customer support agents and customers who are happier. So you are able to do things like this. Even if you're integrating with existing solutions, you're able to create all this logic, the knowledge base and the logic from all the experts. So this is another situation. So this is a knowledge-based management agent. I don't know if any of you use Notion. I know no one would typically answer, but we'll take risk here and ask. Do you guys use Notion like for knowledge-based, either personally or within your guide? You don't have to speak. You can just give a thumbs up. And just, yeah, nice. All right. So yeah, so if we use tools like Notion, imagine you handle the entire knowledge base in Notion. So we could then use the knowledge base, updates the knowledge base based on resolved tickets and common queries. Like the example I gave you for, let's say, in my case, hypothetical situation, GoMoney, we made a mistake in our implementation of sending 1 million. And we put the fee as the total limit. This was a mistake we made early on, and that actually happened. We corrected it, but it happened. So if you do that and you say, oh, if I get things with session ID from GoMoney 100022, something like that, I automatically know, and it falls into a category that I'll typically flag as fraud. I could send it for human evaluation and send it to someone and allow me the humans team to review manually for a brief period and see if this pattern continues. Then we just say, oh, we don't necessarily need to put a regulatory block on this particular outcome. We also identify places where there's documentation that is missing. Basically, I can't solve this problem because I keep going to a human. This human feels important, but this human is making it us dependent on him or her. for the solution consistently. So thereby creating a gap for me where I can't resolve this issue without reaching out to this person. So I'm like, okay, AI agent team, product team, we need to get the documentation from this person. This person is too busy. This person is too busy because we are dependent on this person. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit with this person to get the necessary information that we want from them and just say, oh, I need this documentation so that I can integrate this into my workflow to improve things. Yeah. Now we have quality control. If we write documentation that is garbage, we run the risk of basically garbage accuracy and suggestions. Basically, all the things that won't work as we expect them to. So this is an example of how one could measure performance. I think someone asked the last time how we'll measure performance. And I thought we should just include this in the presentation now. So if you have ticket classification, the person has to understand the nature of the problem, but we could just automate it. We have being able to draft a response, understanding the issue, you know, how you're crafting it, using Grammarly, trying to be polite to the customer, because you don't know when the person is going to say, I wasn't treated respectfully. Why is a 50-year-old Yoruba man who is asking you, who's telling you, how are you talking to me like this? But you simply have a pattern that is consistent and respectful in that context, and you can have the AI assist, thereby getting all the issues and creating the requests. Yeah. Then we have the escalation decision. You have, I don't know how to escalate. I keep going back to the customer. You can get things like this and say, oh, I want to move from 20 to 85% by building a customer service agent. And this in itself, so this escalation agent will be a manager agent. And you remember, I know I say you remember, but I can't go back to the presentation. But, you know, when in our previous session, we explained how you could create multiple agents who are experts and they all report to a manager agent who has a deeper knowledge base and says, oh, so this particular issue, you are not routing it correctly as an individual, but the agent is routing it correctly. So in that particular situation, you want the escalation decision framework or workflow to improve so that we see that if I escalate this way, we have resolution time as X. That'll be a way I'll measure it. If we escalate this way, there's a very bizarre route and we keep bouncing around, then we get back to the actual point A. So I would then always suggest, oh, for this nature of problem, by understanding this issue semantically, you should go to person A for resolution, and thereby reducing the time to resolution, giving our customers a phenomenal experience. So that would be another thing that one would consider. Well, obviously, we could start one by one. You build the systems, the response drafting system. We could build the ticket classification. You read all the responses from people and the ones that do not result in issues and say, I'll need to craft my messages with the understanding of the different people and the different buckets in this way. And then ticket classification. So you say, oh, we'll start by building a ticket classification system, which might just be semantic understanding. I'll do that. So yeah, and then escalation decision. So when we do all of this, we could then build and measure the performance in this way. Okay, so these are other internal functions that could benefit from agentic workflows, agentic AI in some way, AI agents, agentic AI, you know, we made that distinction. So the legal and compliance organization, they could do their contract review, which they could choose to keep as a custom solution similar to the McKinsey example I mentioned, because you don't want your contracts to be read by Anthropic, Perplexity, or OpenAI in this case, or Google Gemini, which I tend to forget. And you can do this for document management. You can also do this for IT operations. The IT operations team, they are in charge of tracing all assets, whatever incident management and security management, depending on how your organization is structured. I'm just being a generalist here and saying this is how some operate. Then you have procurement. You can have an AI agent in terms of understanding your contract negotiation and your supply chain optimization. And in HR, they already use HRMS systems, ATS systems, at the resume screening. But you can also create a knowledge base internally. Let's say we have Tomiwa, who is a HR expert here, and Bill has a proper knowledge base. We then take the knowledge base here and then allow people to ask questions for how do I get promoted? Then you want to ask that kind of question too. And then Tomiwa, the HR expert and the HR agent here, will be able to say, oh, to get promoted within our organization, what you need to do is this: you need to perform at this level at your performance review over this period. The expectation is for the next level, you have XYZ skills, and that means they can be evaluated by what we call a job family leader in our organization. So you do all of those things, and then we're in a good place. Okay, so you have that answer, and you know how to work towards it. Even though there might be some subjectivity, there's an objective way that you can work towards doing this. Then the last thing we have is performance analysis. This is analyzing the performance across teams, across job families, job function. The evaluation can also be done with this. So this is a hypothetical way you could run your implementation. I just created this nothing. So you just have the foundation, your MVP development, or, as we described, an MVA. More viable agent. So this is just core agent capabilities. There could be a long-term thing as you upskill yourself as an individual. If you just keep implementing different parts of this with a different understanding that you have, and you get from here to here. So you can create this as a learning path for yourself as well. How do I ensure that I put all the things that I need to ensure that by 2026, my organization can deploy AI agents at scale? And then you start setting the foundation here. So you say, what are high impacts, low complexity use cases that I can deploy? What teams would I work with to get this? What teams have good documentation? Where the Olamides, Bantus, Esther's, Tomiwa's in my organization that will make this easy? People who like process, who like documentation, who will make my life easy, and this implementation is success. So those are the things you could start with. So they will be people you work with here, but you understand that they've lowered the barrier of complexity because they understand all their processes. They have robust and solid teams who are able to scale. Olamide can go and leave peacefully. Same thing with Esther, Bantu, and Tomiwa. They can go and leave because they equip their teams with the right documentation and the right processes. Their success is not all on my, am I needed for every single issue? They think more strategically. So people like that give you an opportunity to create high impact solutions, people who have processes within their own organization. Yeah. And then this is just in a case where you want to build it. There are lots of, again, Python is, when it comes to ML, I think Python is goated in this way. So if you're going to build libraries, you don't necessarily need to do this yourself. You're the PM, you just need to decide what needs to be done. But if you're a more technical PM here, or you're actually technical here, this is just some data architecture components. So ClickHouse for data warehousing, they use Postgres for the transaction, for Redis for caching. We use transformer models. Most of the T in GPT is transformer. So and then vector databases are typically the data storage options you use when you're dealing with things with tokens. Basically, when it comes to semantic handling, vector databases are what I tend to be used here. And lastly, you have REST APIs, event streaming, and workbook management. This is technical jargon, but it's the way things will work. And if you wanted to build this and decide what your data strategy should be, this is just hypothetical ways you can measure this. FTE here means full-time employee. So you can experience some cost reduction by not necessarily needing to hire as many people because you have people who are more effective. You can set metrics for yourself, user satisfaction, accuracy improvement, and efficiency gains if you have manual processes. Okay, these are just risk mitigation. They are the less interesting part. If you were to, this is if you wanted to do this, you get stakeholder alignment. And sometimes I know this might be because this is being recorded, but sometimes you don't necessarily need executive sponsorship if you just want to do this on personal growth level. Like you want to say, oh, if I were to build this within my organization, you can do all the research and all the processes and understand what is necessary before you go to executives for executive sponsorship. You understand how your organization works and then decide what it would take to actually implement an AI agent strategy in the organization. You decide, okay, what is the use case? The two use cases that I described here, finance and customer service, they're easy wins for me because of my areas of expertise. So these two things are things I could work with. The fraud team is tangential to finance, and I have experience dealing with that as well. And then you can just do a technical assessment if you have that skill set or work with people. You know that thing where PMs, we don't necessarily have authority over some people, but you build relationships that allow you to get things done. That would be something similar here. You could have a friend in IT and the IT operations team and get some info there. Then you can work with cross-functional team. You have someone on the data team, someone on the growth team. The growth team, because they're usually phenomenal when it comes to data analysis, and they could tell you how they could help you see things you typically would not see. So growth PMs tend to work well with data, and they tend to have growth data scientists or growth data analysts, or even sometimes growth data engineers who handle the streaming of data, as well as the data warehousing. So you could just form an ad hoc team and get things done. And this is a case where, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to do a build versus buy, you want to make a build or buy decision for the core AI capability. As much as we're going to design most of it, if you're not going to use an open source library that you customize and host yourself, you might need to still partner with, if the organization uses Google, you might choose to say, oh, Gemini and the AI studio there. So I'll go to Vertex AI and decide what model I want to pick for whatever use case. If you remember our model selection framework, the MATE framework that we discussed earlier. So this is just the gist of how you could implement AI agents within an internal organization. I hope I was able to convince you about the viability and not deter you from trying this out by adding undue complexity. It's fun. It's something you should try. And be a fun thing to do. Just do what you have to do. All right. I'm still available. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Hi, Wole. Thank you very much, Wole, for this. I don't know if anybody has any question that they would like to ask. You could just raise your hand, or you could chat, or use the question feature if you don't want to speak. Anybody? Any clarifications, probably from part one, part two, or this one that we just had today that you would like to clarify, or well, if to buttress more. Anybody? So are we clear? Are we good? If we are told to, build an AI internal solutions using AI, are we able to at least navigate through that? Do you have understanding of how this works? And any questions that we could want to ask basically. All right, awesome. Thank you everyone. Hi Wale, can you hear me please?
Yes, I can.
Yes, so I really, really want to say a big thank you on behalf of PIP and myself for, dedicating 3 consecutive different times, come and take us and teach us and share the ideas. Oh, you dropped your question in the Q&A. I didn't get it, Adobe. Do you want to omit your mic to speak or
Oh,
type it out?
a question was about slides. I'm getting the slides.
Oh, if we're getting the slides. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Wale will share that with us and we'll put it on the channel. That should be the resource channel, I think. Yes, as soon as we get the slides from Wole, we'll do that. All right. Thank you very much, Adobe. Okay. Yeah. So as I was saying, it was taking out your time out of the busy schedule you have to come and speak to us about AI building AI solutions and how important it is for us as PMs. We don't take that for granted, and for that, we say thank you very much. This session was quite insightful. Like I said, probably a lot of information that people still need to go back and digest. So, if people want to reach you, like probably to ask questions or anything outside of now, how are they able to like do that? And probably some people want to ask, but they don't want to. Did they reach you via LinkedIn, or probably like shoot you a message on Slack if you're on Slack also or something?
I'm also on your Slack, and LinkedIn is also fine, but Slack also works. Like if you reach out to me on Slack, I think if you
All
people who have
right.
reached out have responded.
All right, awesome, very much. So you can reach Wole. Sorry about that. So his name is Wole Olorunleke. Did I get that right? I can't remember. Yes, on Slack. So you could just check Wole Olorunleke. Yes, exactly. On Slack, you could also text him. So yeah, this is the PIP webinar series, and it happens every second and last Thursday of every month. And we also have like other events like the IPS, that's the interview prep session, and the GMS, that's the general mentorship and group mentorship sessions that happen alternatively every Tuesday, and also the BC, that's the bi-weekly check-in call that happens like every 2 weeks Saturday that you could join and also leverage, where you could come talk about your issues or ask questions that concern you as a PM also. So thank you very much everyone for joining the call tonight, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much once again, Wole, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.